I'm Marisa Norcross.
And I'm Dave Freund, and this is The Next Page. Marisa, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Oh, you didn't want to outdo me?
I deferred.
I went a step down from like wonderful or fantastic.
Because it's been a long, we're recording late in the week, and it has been a long week.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? The days are longer, which gives us nicer evenings. The weather has been wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Spring has sprung. I look out in the garden, and every day there's more green coming up through. I can't wait for all the tulips and the daffodils to be blooming.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was your thought when you saw my title, A Ticking Time Bomb?
See, I've learned to anticipate your questions. And I had no expectations. I was definitely surprised by the title and the content. But it makes sense.
It does. You know, so I was I have a leadership devotional kind of thing, I guess you'd call it.
Mm-hmm.
So every day there's a leadership principle. And one day I read this statement that really shocked me. It says, you can only lead people whose leadership abilities are less than yours. And my first thought was, well, how arrogant.
Right.
I mean, are you really going to say that everybody that works for me isn't as good as me? That's really what I'm seeing here. But that's really not what was said. What was really said was you can't lead people. That doesn't mean they're not good. It doesn't mean they're not gifted. It doesn't mean they aren't amazing employees. But it was really focusing on the fact that people aren't going to stick around if you're not a good leader. And the best and the brightest, those folks that have this aptitude for leadership, will leave if they sense the fact that you aren't able to take them and the organization to the next level. Now, the other scenario we have here is that people don't leave companies, they leave bosses.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I have seen it over and over and over again that people leave bosses, they don't leave companies. And companies better start looking at their turnover and try to figure out what's the cause and start looking in the mirror as to what might be the reason that some of these folks are leaving. And then I remembered a statistic that I had from when I did my Maxwell certification. And it was the Gallup survey that said 89% of millennials claim professional growth and career development are very important to them. So then I kind of wondered, okay, what percentage of the workforce are millennials? And as of 2020, half the workforce is made up of millennials.
Mm-hmm.
It's only going to get bigger.
We're coming for you.
You're coming to take us away, right?
Never.
And so if the reality is that means that this vast majority of my majority generational component in my organization is saying, I want to grow and I want to develop.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not going to take me on this journey, I'll go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So companies need to realize the seriousness of this, that literally you are saying, that's why I call it a ticking time bomb. If you don't address this issue, not only will you not attract people, but you won't keep people. And so what you're going to be stuck with are the people that don't want to grow, don't want to develop, and have no leadership abilities themselves that they're cultivating.
Right. I mean, you're just kind of, breeding complacency at that point.
Right. And you are giving up your business.
Mm-hmm.
Because your competition, if they wake up to this, will have the best and the brightest and will be continually growing and developing. So the good news is we just need to stay ahead of the game. This awareness is the key, and being able to make the right decisions early will save your business long term. Mm-hmm. So I put just a few things here in bullet points. Build and share. Build your own growth plan. Now, that's no surprise to anybody that's read anything I've written or listened to any of our podcasts that, yes, I do obsess about things like growth plans and growth, because if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yep.
It's that simple, because things are changing so fast that if we're not very nimble and growth minded, we're going to get passed by. But the other part is to share it. And I just know that whenever I'm around people that are sharing with me what they're growing, I get inspired. How they're growing, I get inspired.
Mm-hmm.
When they share what they're learning, I get inspired.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that we all need to realize is don't focus on weaknesses, focus on giftedness. And I've said that multiple times before too. So as a leader in your organization, you need to ask yourself, continually be checking, where's my giftedness? What am I really good at? What am I better at than most people? Now, that's not an arrogance thing. That's an awareness statement. And then, how can I grow in that? I actually was listening to a podcast today as I was driving back and forth to the office. And it was the Maxwell Leadership Podcast. And John Maxwell actually said that he hired someone to listen to him speak and critique his speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he learned that from his dad, who used to pay John and his brother Larry 10 cents for every grammatical error they could find when he was speaking. So here's a man that was clearly, John, a gifted speaker, one of the probably the best public speakers that I've ever heard. But that didn't happen by accident. Yes, he's a gifted speaker, but he continued to hone his craft so that he could be the best. Mm-hmm. So that's really what we as leaders need to do. And then share this with other people. Take people on the journey, invite them on the journey with you so that they're learning while you're learning. The second thing was to be transparent. And I wrote here, too many leaders are unwilling to seek unbiased feedback. And it's a sad reality. So often I get brought into an organization and I'm told, do 360s on these middle level managers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying, can we do a 360 on the owner? Can we do a 360 on the boss?
Right. Or at least start there, right?
Or at least start there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But unfortunately, that it's rare. Now, there is one organization that I'm working with right now that has done more 360s than any organization I've worked with. And I can tell. Because the newest project they have me doing is 6 plant level leaders throughout 6 different plants, I believe, throughout the country is what it's sounding like. And their boss started with his own 360 last fall.
Mm-hmm.
And he just said, I had one done and they all participated. And I know I got a lot out of it, so I think they would as well. And then he said, and by the way, once we're done with this, let's take a look at maybe we roll it down to another layer in the organization.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that, so obviously, we've talked many, many, many times about the 360 tool and what you can get from that. And I think, there's the main objectives of gathering candid feedback from your team members.
Right.
But is there kind of like a secondary benefit? Like, have you noticed that once people are able to be transparent and share, that it breaks down some of the barriers or frees up communication? Do you notice that?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm thinking of one situation where the 360 was a rough one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it wasn't bad, but it was a rough one. But what happened was the individual really took to heart the feedback in the 360.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did was they shared that with their team, and their team saw them making improvements based on the information they heard. And what's happened since then is the feedback has just continued.
Mm-hmm.
Because once a team member knows that their leader is really open to feedback and won't retaliate and continues to say, hey, how am I doing? Mm-hmm. They're more open to say, can I just share something with you?
Right.
I'm not sure you were aware of this, but this is something I noticed.
So once the employee notices that the leader is on a path of growth, they too want to grow with them, is what I'm hearing.
Exactly. You got it. It's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what they want to take part in that journey.
Mm-hmm.
And something else that was very interesting that I was on a coaching call this week with this leader that had a bit of a challenge at the beginning, but really embraced it. Now the team not only values her, but appreciates everything she's doing. And when she had 2 employees this past week stop her and say, "Are you okay? You look really tired."
Mm-hmm.
Because there's this mutual valuing of each other. And that valuing began when the leader was willing to say, "Dave, I want you to go out and I want you to meet with these 10 people. And I want you to find out what they think of me, of various aspects of my leadership, my communications, my strengths. What areas should I improve on, those type of things." It's a powerful tool. So leaders, if you want your team to grow, if you want to attract the best, you better be transparent. And you better be willing to say, "Listen, I need somebody to find out what is the truth behind, not what I think, but what's really there." The funny part is, like, some leaders, they just don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "No, why would I give people a chance to take shots at me?"
They're taking
the
shots
reality-
at you anyways.
They're taking shots anyways. The only problem right now is you don't know it.
Right.
So the only person that doesn't know the reality of the situation is the leader that's unwilling to do the 360.
Mm-hmm.
So I encourage people, do it. It is a freeing experience to hear what really is going on in the organization. And you don't need to spend money and hire people. I prefer if you do, but you don't have to. But you can do these things on your own. You can write up a simple set of questions and email it to people in a Word document, have them fill it out and drop it off on your desk. It's the same thing.
Right.
But you better be willing to commit to the change.
Mm-hmm.
The third point that I had here was choose well. Choose who it is you're going to work with. And am I talking about being very discriminating in your thought and your analysis? Yes. And what I'm saying is, look for people who tend to have a giftedness in leading. And here's why. If there's 2 kinds of leaders. There's leaders who attract followers, and there's leaders who attract leaders. Now, the reason why we want to, and we can dig a little bit more into that in a minute, but the reason why you want to be a leader who attracts leaders is your impact is exponential in terms of opportunity. Because no one can work with a huge team of people. You can work with a small group of leaders. But if that small group of leaders that you're developing is working with others, and maybe even the next layer of leaders coming up, this becomes almost a logarithmic, an exponential increase in your reach, in your capacity for your organization. So find those next emerging leaders and work with them. Let me just give a couple differences. What are the differences between a leader who attracts followers? So a leader who attracts followers needs to be needed. They love to be the savior that rushes in at the last minute. And they seem to always want recognition. It's like, this is my team and look what I'm doing type of thing. They focus on people's weaknesses, not people's strengths. And so what happens is they look for anything that's being done wrong, and they try to get the person to correct that. Rather than asking, is this an aptitude issue that's causing this person to not rise up to the level that we wanted them to, or is it, and I don't care, is it an aptitude or an attitude? Mm-hmm. Both start with A, but an aptitude is a skill set issue. Well, you know what? I just don't have the aptitude for this. So maybe they're in the wrong job. But it just seems that these leaders who attract followers are always looking for people that are, their project to trying to help type of thing. And the result is, and also they view their time as, I'm spending time with someone. It's like this mindset that, no, do I have to sit with them again? I thought they would have gotten it by now. and they'll experience some success. Now, a leader who attracts leaders, they want to be succeeded. And I thought that was a great statement.
Mm-hmm.
You know, leaders who attract leaders are saying, I need somebody to do my job so that I can move on to the next one. And if you think about just that mindset, that's opening the door for other people to say, I have a path of growth here. Because my boss really would say she would love it if I could do her job. They want to reproduce themselves. They want to develop people that can do what they do. So again, so they can move on to other opportunities. And they focus on people's strengths. They're really good at finding the giftedness in people. Liz Wiseman would call those people their genius makers.
Mm-hmm.
They look for people's native genius. And they view the time they spend with others as investing in time, in investing time with other people. They really believe that the time they spend with someone will be returned with compounding interest. And what do they experience? Incredible success, because they're not doing it alone. They don't have a bunch of people following, watching them do it. They've got a bunch of people that they have unleashed their potential, and they're really carrying it to the next level. I made a couple other notes that I sent to you just so we'd have something to touch on here. So, you know, what do great leaders do? They identify up-and-coming leaders. They find them and they identify them. Now, that's really hard. It's hard to find leaders because you have to know what to look for.
Mm-hmm.
And you're looking for people that show initiative. And you're looking, and somebody says, well, you know, how can I, and I've heard this, and, you know, people have said to me in some of my classes, you know, how do I test if a person really has leadership abilities? I said, you look for it.
Right.
You know, when there's a project that needs to be led, do they do it, or do they wait for somebody with a title to do it? You know, do they look for opportunity to just engage? And do they look for opportunities to come alongside somebody else and help them? Those are the little things you're looking for that would be this leadership giftedness that's there. And, you know, you can see it. I remember listening to one person do a talk on, and this is a really tremendous leader running an amazing organization. And he said, you know, I'm going to be honest, when I was, you know, like in 3rd or 4th grade, I was already a leader. He says, just looking back, I was getting folks to do things. I was encouraging the team. So it's there. Look for it. You know, attract leaders, invite them to the table. And you know, the table is such a beautiful example. You know, what do we do at a table? We eat. You know, we spend time together. We talk. So bring these people into the opportunity to be at the table with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Understand them, connect with them. Find ways to motivate them. And so once I've connected with them, now I know what is it that inspires them? How can I really get them, you know, excited about something? Well, I know because I know them. And I find those opportunities for them. And then I love this one, equip them. This is giving them the tools. But equipping isn't enough. I need to empower them by giving them the opportunity. And it's interesting. There are leaders that don't want their people to do more than a certain amount. They're like threatened
Mm-hmm.
if their people get too good. And it's, you know, and I don't say that in a way of casting judgment. I remember, and I shared this in a class that I taught recently, but I don't remember what class it was. Twice in my life when I hired people, I was worried they would be smarter than me. And I was president of a company at the time. And I'm like, looking back, I'm thinking, man, we better hope they were smarter than me. Because I wasn't that bright. But it was like this insecurity piece in me as a new president saying, well, what if they're better than me? What if the owner finds out that these guys are better than me?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then the owner would probably say, Dave, really good hire. Can you do that again? You know, so
Yep.
I understand when we don't want to go there. position them, team them up, to multiply the impact. And then we get to this point, and this kind of gets into our ladder conversation. Mentor them, coach them to the next level, and then show them how to develop other leaders. If we don't, we're in trouble because it's a ticking time bomb. And it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. And I just think that this, when I read that statement, it struck me. And the more I reflected on it, and the more I started thinking about organizations that I'm aware of, it is a real critical problem that, if we're not careful, is going to explode. What are some? I did way too much talking here. So, what are some of your thoughts on this?
I think
as a millennial,
yes. I think this pairs well with our ladders conversation. Yeah. And it's funny, you and I keep drawing parallels to that, both on the podcast and off. But I think that this applies in a lot of places, not just in an organization, but I'm thinking about, boards, right? Yes. Like I'm on a nonprofit board, and I think about, oftentimes, if you don't do this on a board where there are terms, yes, the organization could be in some serious trouble, right? Right. I think about this at the education level, yes, in public education, private education, higher education. And I also think about it, in families and how we raise our kids and how we send them off into the world. I think this applies in a lot of places. And it's really thought provoking to think about, because most of us are leaders in some way, shape, or form, whether it be at work or just as, maybe you coach a sport as a volunteer or are involved in a group at your kid's school, something like that. And it's really eye-opening to ask yourself, am I leading to attract followers or am I leading to attract leaders? Yes. Because oftentimes we might just think, well, I'm a leader, but we don't think about what type of leader we might be.
Exactly. What a great point. And there's so much need for great inspirational leadership that we better all be attracting leaders.
Mm-hmm. And I think we can often, if we think about the leaders in our lives, we think about, the ones that we were particularly connected to. I think that when you look at that, you're like, well, it's because they were leading to attract leaders. Right. And that's why they were, so impactful in our lives.
Exactly. I love that. Because what happened was they were leading to attract leaders, and it really was magnetic almost. Right. We were drawn to them, and then they sensed that and rewarded that. Right.
It's not like they had a sign that said, like, looking for leaders, apply here. Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We were, and I never thought of it that way, that, we can actually be the proof of what this theory was because of where we went and what we did. Mm-hmm. And who was it that we decided to work with? Who was it that we chose to go work for? And what did they work, or sign up with in terms of like a board type of thing? And then what, how did it make us feel? Well, it made us feel valued. And where did we not go because of it? Mm-hmm. That's even more telling. Yeah, that's a really great point. So I really want to encourage, everybody that's listening to this and those that read the post, what are you doing? And are you that person that people are going to want to work with? And and take a look, especially in organizations, what's our turnover rate? Mm-hmm. And who are we losing? And the people that we lost, where did they go? And, it'd be interesting if you could look at the turnover of, I'm going to make a statement, although I have no way of verifying the facts, but those companies with the lowest turnover are probably more successful. Mm-hmm. because they're attracting and keeping the best and the brightest. And those that want to make a difference. Sobering topic, but really one that all of us need to think about. And I was glad that I read that, and I've been pondering it. I actually read that on the 20th,
Mm-hmm.
and it has just been sticking with me ever since. So, must be it was a lesson I needed to learn.
Thank you for sharing it with us.
My pleasure. And I have no idea what we're talking about next week.
That's okay.
Something will come to me. I'm going to be alone a bit this weekend because
Mm-hmm.
family members have both doses of the vaccine and are traveling. So, and I'm just staying home, which is okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any interesting plans as spring is sprung or has sprung?
Nothing yet. I think this weekend we're going to finalize our spring bucket list. I've kind of
awesome
been gathering my inspiration, and I need to just actually create the list now. So
good.
It might end up being like a spring summer, because in my mind those two things kind of melt together.
Yeah, they do. Yep.
In the best way possible.
Sure.
I'm so excited about just seeing like green. My grass looks a little bit greener every single day, and I am pleased as punch.
Good. And I do have to let all of our listeners know that during one of our meetings today, your daughters were singing Christmas music, which I thought was wonderful.
They did not get that from me.
So with that, I'm Dave Freund.
I'm Marissa Norcross.
And this was The Next Page.